Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We are pleased to present our next speaker, David Frugeri with Slalom. Please give him a warm welcome.
Okay, pretty good. You hear that all right? All right, let's start off with a quick poll, see who I have in the audience before we get going. I have a clicker. Where's my clicker? Where's my clicker? Is it this guy? That one right there, green button. Perfect, okay. How many people here actually build models yourselves? Like, that's your job, okay. How many people lead teams that build models? Okay. Any consumers of the insights that come out of these models? Okay, got a couple. All right. So today, a lot of this, we're going to go into some detail, particularly when we get into the customer story. But this is really a strategy conversation that we're going to have today, and we're going to talk about transformation and really what do we mean by when we're transforming the way we do things, particularly around machine learning and leveraging machine learning to really enable our companies to solve, intractable kind of problems, take advantage of new opportunities, and what are those capabilities that we really need to have in place, not just with the model, but everything that goes on around it. So really the key takeaways that I'm hoping you'll have today is one is I want to connect a few dots. The first dot is just helping you understand how running machine learning in the cloud has a lot of the similar characteristics that we already know about from cloud computing. We want to talk about how using a managed service like SageMaker can help you accelerate business transformation. And then finally, really connecting it to the specific capabilities of SageMaker. So first, to pay the bills, a little bit about Slalom. So Slalom, in a nutshell, is really about helping companies transform the way that they do business, the way that they actually serve their clients and their employees. We're really proud of the idea that we co-create. We co-create in a number of different ways. One is that we like to bring a multidisciplinary approach to solving clients' problems. So very seldom will you find just a data scientist on the project. You'll find out we'll have change management, user experience, customer strategy, and we believe bringing that diversity together really makes a difference in terms of solving the more complex problems. But we're also a very values-driven organization, and I think that's why our partnership with AWS is so important, because we share a lot of those same values. If you look at the AWS side, they talk a lot about learning and trust, and that's a lot of what we are also about at Slalom. So I think it really helps a lot from a partnership perspective. So Slalom is sometimes referred to as the smallest of the big consultancies or the biggest of the small. We're comfortable with either characteristic. Our machine learning practice you can think about in two distinct segments. One is think about it as enablement, where we're kind of working behind the scenes, enabling data science teams, training them on things like Python or AWS or SageMaker specifically. We're helping them do migrations. We're helping them conduct workshops with the business. And then on the other side of the practice is really the actual model development. And this is where you're finding these multidisciplinary teams coming in to solve, customer attrition problems or forecasting or supply chain problems. And we're bringing those different capabilities to bear. Okay, so let's get started with just making sure that we understand that running machine learning and running SageMaker has a lot of the same attributes that we're already familiar with in the cloud. So for example, the ability to reduce risk, where we're able to build new capabilities at a fairly low risk because it doesn't really cost a lot. I mean, a lot of times you're still operating in the free tier, so that's a huge benefit. the idea that we can have ready access to advanced capabilities right at a point and click right in our console is also something that we're already familiar with. The idea of reusability, right? We're already familiar with Terraform. Now with SageMaker, we can reuse Jupyter notebooks super easy, right? So there's a lot of other areas around operationalization and automation that we're already really familiar with. And of course, the serverless nature of SageMaker is also very similar to our understanding that we don't have to worry about bare metal maintenance anymore and other data center concerns. So, we hear a lot about machine learning, a lot, and particularly today we heard a ton of it. But I think it's important to do a level set for those of us who are actually working on this every single day. And the first thing is, machine learning is hard. And it takes not only an investment of money, but it takes an investment in time. And over time, what we have found is that even if you go into the earlier days, like beginning of this decade, even the large tech companies, Google, Twitter, Intel, they actually had to go out and acquire ML companies themselves in order to jumpstart their capabilities. So that's kind of to give you a bit of a level set in terms of this journey that we're all headed on. But now what we're finding is this second tier of companies that are making significant investments, and it's really that Fortune 500, maybe the Fortune 1000, that are now really making these sustained commitments to building out these capabilities. So why do we need managed ML? And this is a really important area to really think about, because before you really get started on any machine learning endeavor, if it's SageMaker, is that you want to really have a strong strategy in place in terms of how you're going to actually take advantage of it. So these are some of the key areas that we hear a lot, like really working closely with the business and making sure that there's alignment with them. The idea that we want to get to answers a lot faster than we have previously. As well as just being able to manage larger sums of data. And this is going to be a kind of a reoccurring theme that we're going to be talking through. So what does actually SageMaker then mean for us? Well, SageMaker, obviously, right off the bat, provides us with the ability to reuse our own Jupyter notebooks, or being able to augment our own networks really easily, right? The second area that SageMaker allows us is from an operationalization perspective, this idea that we can pull data directly from S3, that we can score whatever we want to predict or what have you, and then be able to publish it out via an HTTP endpoint. So again, building these kind of analytics factories with SageMaker at the center of it really opens up a lot of opportunities for us. And then finally, this idea around that we want to have more measurable type impacts on the organization. And so one of the things that really means is that we need to be able to, compress the time it takes to develop a model in terms of getting a new model out to market or to our business. But we also have to be able to increase the frequency in which we deliver the insights to the business, right? So it's those two things, and then coupling it with being able to deliver the insights where and how and when they actually need to be actually integrated with the business. And this is where a lot of the transformation actually occurs, where machine learning and AI, this becomes a regular part of the fabric of doing business. Okay, so now we're going to talk about, there's a couple of different ways that we can get started with SageMaker. So first and foremost, what we have learned is the most successful machine learning initiatives have been marked by a leader who has done a really good job of setting proper expectations of the overall journey that it's going to take to really learn where the levers are within the business, within the data, that you can actually have some kind of positive effect. That's really, really important, that people understand that this is a learning journey and it's not like a one and done type environment. But there's also other critical questions that you should be asking yourself before moving on in this endeavor. So just a real quick sweep of the different kind of situations that we run into. If you have old models, maybe the data scientists who originally created them are no longer with the company and no one really knows what he or she was thinking when they developed it, that might be a good candidate to move out to and rebuild in SageMaker. When we're talking about the different kinds of strategies, sometimes you have a really big opportunity or a pressing problem that you want to get after. And so you may want to be developing something net new, and SageMaker provides you the ability to start fresh. Another area is some of our clients say, you know what, all my legacy R, SAS, what have you, I'm just going to wrap it up into Onyx and I'm going to execute it out on SageMaker. But then all my net new development is going to actually happen out on SageMaker. And then the last one that I've seen is what I refer to basically as burn the boats, where the client is going to rebuild all their legacy stuff in Python. They're going to take the opportunity to tune the models and move them out. And then, of course, all the net new is going to be built and operationalized out on SageMaker. So I find myself making this statement a lot today. I'm not really sure why, but it's this idea that change doesn't happen until it's too uncomfortable to stay the same. And we see that a lot in terms of like the initial adoption of SageMaker. So sometimes, and maybe some of you experience this, some of the more legacy kind of analytics packages are just becoming too unwieldy. Hadoop is getting too big, and you don't even want to contemplate what that would look like in terms of migrating the data. So you just do a forklift. Another area is that you just want to move the analytics server. Another opportunity is, like I mentioned earlier, is repackaging the Onyx, repackaging in Onyx, and then finally, rebuilding everything in Python. So some of the things you may want to really think about when what it is that you want to actually migrate out to SageMaker. First thing that I would look at is, what do I have actually documented? Like, what do I actually really know what the model is doing? If I don't know what the model is doing, then I'm going to put a spotlight on that. Other areas is, if I looked at the code and I'd ask myself, wow, would this code actually pass muster today, and would it actually make it into production? And then, of course, there are other areas that you need to take into account, like, are you just running out of data storage space or other kind of physical constraints that you may have. Okay, so in the remaining time, I want to go into like a real-world customer example with you and kind of map it back. So, going back to the strategy for Avis, when we think about machine learning strategies up front, we basically have like three. There's one where it's really about automation, kind of earn more, make more. There's one around, there's a business imperative, and there's another one really where we're going to kind of transform the business into something brand new. Think like Rocket Mortgage being spun out of Quicken Loans. For Avis, it was really this business imperative type strategy where what they really wanted to do was, A, make sure that all their cars were getting out onto the street and being rented, but they also wanted to optimize think about the breakage. So I pay X amount of money in a lease per month for this car, and I want to make sure my mileage is actually meeting that threshold across my entire fleet to the best I possibly can. So that was really the second part of the project. So that was kind of the why and the strategy. The way that the model actually works is that the attendant, when you bring the car back to the garage, you have to kind of like that QR code on the window. The app actually takes a scan of that specific QR code, and what happens is SageMaker actually makes a recommendation based upon what the algorithm is saying around optimizing that breakage which I just described. So what you get back is these different color codings is what you actually find in the lanes. So if a car is really far off from its breakage, that's going to be kind of like a first in, first out recommendation. So they're going to move that car, they're going to put that car at the top of the list so it goes back out as soon as possible. Other cars that are closer to the actual limit are going to be put in the slow lane, and they will eventually get moved out. Now, this is a really simple explanation. You'll see like over time how it actually grew in sophistication. Now, going back to the cloud example that we had before, talking about the benefits of the cloud, you can see that we're using a lot of automation in terms of the use of lambdas, of triggering the actual scoring by SageMaker. Obviously, we're in a serverless environment. We're storing the insights over time so we can go back through and understand how good those predictions and recommendations were over time. So again, everything that we're already really familiar with from a cloud perspective, you're seeing actually happen, but with an ML engine associated with it. So the key thing here on our model development process, and I don't know if this is unique to Slalom or not, but really the way that we like to develop, again, is in a really highly collaborative, iterative process with our clients. We talk about doing basically 48-hour sprints. So for example, every Tuesday and Thursday, we do a demonstration for our clients. So we get feedback from the stakeholders, from the users, and we go another 48 hours and they see something again. And that's basically what you're actually seeing here, is that during the development process that we were getting that feedback, but we're also getting feedback from the field during the pilot in terms of what was working and what was not working. So again, the theme of staying really close with the business and the actual users of the model is really, really important as it relates to, making that kind of significant transformation. So we talked a little bit about Lambda already, but this is the marrying up with actual SageMaker. So what is SageMaker doing? So we're able to import the Python libraries into SageMaker. We're able to build the pipelines from S3 directly into SageMaker, train the model. We're able to share those notebooks with other people. One of the things that we love about SageMaker is that our client can go in at any time and see what we're building and seeing the progress. So it's super transparent. And then being able to operationalize the model. Again, getting that insight to where it needs to be and when it needs to be there. Think about delivering something out to a mobile app. So these were the key kind of capabilities. And then from a modeling perspective, it was a lot of linear regression as well as a lot of slope calculations as it relates to when we would actually hit that break point from a lease perspective. And so as I talked about earlier, the transformation is a journey, and particularly with machine learning. So what you see on the left-hand side here right now as features were originally requirements. And these requirements were not known when we started the project. We learned that we needed these other capabilities for the model to be really successful over time. And when we talk about transformation with SageMaker, it just allows us to get through that iteration and development process a lot faster, and it helps us operationalize those models a lot faster. And so you can see, you get all these, sometimes maybe you're saying to yourself, these are corner cases, but if someone's at the desk and they say, I would like an upgrade, the model needs to be able to say, oh, this is an upgrade. Now I need to go find the best car from that luxury class that needs to be able to fill that breakage the soonest, right? But it's through this collaboration and being able to move through the different iterations together with the stakeholders is what we found to be really important. So that's the presentation. I hope everyone has your card, because we have a party, the Data Fiesta, tomorrow night that you're all invited to. So we hope to see you there, and happy to answer any questions for you afterwards. Thanks a lot.